Today's devotional breaks down the concept of flesh versus spirit. Galatians chapter 4 tells us that Sarah and Hagar represents two ways of living. Now, Hagar represents slavery, flesh, being born into bondage. So Galatians chapter 5 gives us all of the acts of the flesh: envy, drunkenness, orgies, and many, many more. Sarah represents what it's like living in freedom, what it's like to live according to promise, and what it's like to live according to the Spirit, and what it's like to follow God and follow God's leading. Genesis chapter 25, it speaks of how descendants of Ishmael live in hostility against all his relatives. And walking in the Spirit means trusting God's timing, his process, and his development of character so that we can carry what he prepared for us. Because to walk in the roles and the position that God assigns to our life takes character building. And without being prepared, could come with a lot of weight. And without proper knowledge or experience, it could be crushing. But for further revelation, I actually have a Bible study. I'll put the link in the description. The title of it is called Jephthah. The subtitle is A Lesson of the Bastard Spirit. In there, I go into the deeper forms of rejection, identity, and spiritual conflict between born of the flesh and born of the promise. And then I have another devotional, and it's titled When What You Want Becomes Your Worst Nightmare. This one focuses more on when Samuel the prophet is getting ready to die. His sons were supposed to take over his spot, and his sons they almost rejected God's ways for their lives, and they took on briberies, and the people of Israel didn't trust them to lead them. Because they were supposed to be next in line. I bring all of these up because they all are in correlation. Each of them they're not very much different teachings, but they are different scenarios to point out different attributes of the connection between being born into bondage and being born of the promise. And if we're having children outside of God's covenant, God's ways, God's expectations, God's commands, we are actually birthing children that are being born into spiritual slavery. And acts of the flesh is the fruit of what it's like to be born into spiritual slavery. And so, as I said before, for further revelation, check out today's devotional. I pray that my message come across clear. And until next time.